R360 is a league of the rarest of individuals who've accumulated extraordinary wealth, yet they have audacious dreams to change the world for the better. We teach them how to grow their wealth way beyond money. Have you ever heard the proverb, give someone a fish, you feed them for a day? Teach them to fish, you feed them for a lifetime. Well, we believe that the same fundamentals apply to money. R360 teaches individuals and families that to achieve your full potential, you need to discover all forms of capital: financial, intellectual, social, human, emotional, and spiritual, which spells fishes. And learning how to catch these fishes is what R360 families master. Welcome to Fortunate Fishes, Secrets of Success from R360. I'm Charlie Garcia.
Barbara Goodstein is a business legend, named one of the top 25 women in finance, serving in the top leadership of Fortune 500 companies while racking up multiple awards for excellence. Barbara's leadership roles included positions at JP Chase, Instinet, American Express, just to name a few. At Vonage, she led a team of 1,700 professionals when she served as Chief Marketing and Innovation Officer. Barbara serves on the advisory board of the Family Office Exchange, and she was appointed to several very prestigious public boards of directors. The media often reaches out to her for her market and leadership insights. Renowned for her courage and passion to help others, Barbara has taken on corrupt judges and predatory landlords in New York City, exploiting their innocent tenants. In this episode of Fortunate Fishes, Barbara shares the secrets of effective leadership and why the best-run organizations always have women among their leadership team.
Welcome, Barbara, to Fortunate Fishes. So what was the trigger in your life that caused you to think about accumulating wealth?
So my parents had a very 1950s type of marriage where my father earned the money and my mother was a homemaker. And somehow as a result of that setup, my father was in charge of all decisions. So any question, and it could be completely mundane, what color should we paint the wall? My mother's response would always be, I have to ask Michael. And I knew the underpinning of that was that he was the breadwinner, and therefore she had to ask him. It was almost like asking permission. She had to ask, do you agree to this? And as I watched that, I realized I want to be a participant in all future decisions, which means I need to make money so that I can have a voice. And so that was sort of the underpinning for why I realized that I wanted to be successful myself.
So it seems like you also wanted to be very, independent. And what did you learn in terms of the accumulation of wealth, in terms of lessons that you might be able to reflect on or teach others in your journey?
So my biggest learning is find the right partners. You need to work with the right people and find people that are have similar values and have similar goals. And whether it's partners in a business or even investors, I've been very fortunate as I started a business. I had investors that were very appreciative of what I was doing and very supportive of every step I made. So I would say find the right partners and try not to get divorced.
That's a good one. In trying to develop your intellect and a growth mindset where you're always learning, if you had to go back today and write a letter to your younger self, what would you say?
I think the biggest advice I would give myself is to be confident. So whenever I haven't trusted my own instincts, that's the only time I've made mistakes. Whenever I trust my gut and I go with my original thought, then I do well. When I listen to other people or I get insecure, that's my biggest risk. So I think I would tell myself, be confident and the path will be clear. And that I think would have served me well, and that would have reduced some of the insecurity in my youth.
And being confident, what does that mean? I mean, how does someone who's not confident all of a sudden become confident?
So I think you have to see over time through example, when you make a decision, how that decision turns out. And confidence is about trusting your own instincts as opposed to absorbing the input of everybody around you. And I've found that a lot of times I've done that, and I've worked with other leaders or other people in senior positions. Will sort of take a poll. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? You have to go with what you feel, what you know is the right way to proceed. And taking a poll, it's not always a democracy. Mm-hmm. Democracy is for politics. It's not for business. So I think that you should listen to the advice of the people around you and then make a well-informed decision.
Mm-hmm. I've always felt that reading books is a force multiplier, because if you can read someone else's story and learn 2 or 3 things and apply them to your life, it can be very powerful. What's the one book that has most influenced you, or that you would give away to someone to help them in their own life journey?
So I read My Dinners with Ruth by Nina Tottenberg, about her relationship with Ruth Ginsburg. And at first I was reading it, and my sense was it was a book about friendship. But the other dimension of that book is how these were 2 women who were intent on breaking through a glass ceiling. And I think in one sentence she says, we were knocking on the door and we were saying, we're coming in, no matter what the response. And that determination and that perseverance in the face of a world that was unprepared for women as equals was so impressive and so instructive to me, because they did it in a way that was so classy and so sophisticated, and they weren't pushy in any way. They earned their positions, and people respected how they got there. So I think there's another dimension to that book. It's not just a book about friendship. It's also a book about female persistence and determination. And I was inspired by it.
That's great. I think you've inspired me to read it. I haven't read it yet.
It's fabulous.
But, at R360, we're trying to inspire future generations to use their wealth in a very socially responsible way, and their time and their entrepreneurial grit. How do you think about your own social responsibility, and what would you like to accomplish to make the world a better place?
So I've been thrown into a very surprising position recently. I have come to see a strange world, which is the world of guardianship. My housekeeper had power of attorney for an elderly friend, and it turns out the elderly friend building stepped in to wrestle the power of attorney away from her using what's called Article 81. They accused her incorrectly of stealing money.
York.
This is in New York.
Mm-hmm.
This is ultimately a battle over a rent control department. And so I became aware of this, and I just stepped in to help, and we've turned this into this enormous marketing and media effort, and I want to shine a light on the wrongful situation here. This is the opposite of due process. This is a very dark place that nobody understands and nobody traditionally looks at, because basically a court can take away a person's entire civil rights.
Wow.
And in this case, the court ruled that this person was deemed an alleged incapacitated person. They marshaled all her assets. They took all her money. They isolated her from all her friends and everybody that knew her for a long period of time. And they make determinations about who should be in her house and who should feed her and what she should eat. And she has absolutely no control.
So what are you doing about it?
So I'm trying to shine a light on it. We've gotten a lot of press through NBC News and Sarah Wallace, fortunately, in New York. We're going to be in the New York Post, and we're producing a documentary on the topic.
Wow. Now, wasn't there a movie about something like this?
There is a movie. Unfortunately, it sort of goes off on a tangent. It's called I Care a Lot, and our situation is going to be all genuine. I Care a Lot sort of goes off into a whole other zone, so it becomes fiction. But this is a real issue and a real problem, and I didn't look for this. It sort of found me, and now I'm inspired that this needs to be fixed.
Wow, well, I've learned from a friend, Mick Ebling, that sometimes you can find something absurd in the world, shine a light on it, and it'll change the entire system. So that's, I assume, what you're hoping for.
That's my goal. That's my plan.
And does this also exist out of the state of New York in other areas as well?
This is a national issue, and it's a pervasive issue, and it's basically a system was set up, and the original intent was to protect people, and instead it's being used to fund a whole world of court appointees. There's no supervision, there's no oversight, and you can imagine when you have a lot of people that are getting paid a lot of money, siphoning money from these elderly people, that there is so much room for abuse, and that unfortunately is what's happening.
Well, I hope you have success in that area. You know, social capital is also about developing deep relationships with people and also leveraging networks to get things done and to help, you know, in your own personal journey. How important has that been for you, and what advice would you give others around that?
So my advice would be to be open to every potential relationship and to find the best in everybody that you connect with. I have a wonderful friend. I met her. She was a recruiter at Korn Ferry. She's become one of the best friends in my life. And just like in my dinners with Ruth, Nina Tottenberg explains how she got to know Ruth Ginsburg over time. And when people show up for each other, that professional relationship morphs into something much deeper. And in this case, as with my friend Carrie, it's morphed into just a fabulous friendship. She is so supportive in terms of networking, introducing me to people, and also being there for me if something bad happened to me.
But now, you've had some very high-level executive positions in corporate America, and I imagine that mentors have also helped you along the way. What advice would you give to young people about mentors, and how important was it for you?
So it was incredibly important for me, and I think the best thing that young people can do is to seek out a mentor. People don't raise their hand and say, I'm here to mentor you. You have to ask. So I think that that's the first thing, is to be a little aggressive, even if it's uncomfortable for younger people, just to say, I'd like your advice, I'd like your help, would you mentor me, would you listen to me, can I ask you a question? And I found that that was one of the biggest dramatic turning points in my life. Was I sought out a vice chairman when I worked at JP Morgan Chase. We had both left the company. I was looking for my next job. It was right after the financial crisis, and I was looking in financial services. And I said to him, I can't find a job in financial services. You know, we've just been through the financial crisis. Everything's closed. And he looked at me and he said, get off the ride. And I said, what? And he said, find a new ride. And it was a light bulb went off. And I was like, oh, I thought I had to stay in financial services. And he gave me permission to make that next step.
Wow. You know, in terms of maximizing human potential, a lot of individuals don't realize the quality of having a high energy level, and how important has been physical exercise, nutrition. What kind of routine have you had to maintain a high energy level in life?
So I actually, in my old age, became a competitive ballroom dancer.
Wow.
And I practice 6 days a week, and I'm very driven by it. I'm also personally very competitive, so this is a great outlet for me, and I've found that it's a wonderful thing. It's a fabulous for relaxation, and also it just, you know, it helps me tap into my energy and enthusiasm all in one place.
Right. And when you were, I mean, working and super, super busy, as a lot of people are, what did you do during your career where you're really busy? How did you, what kind of routines did you have?
So I always found time for some type of athletic activity.
Okay.
I actually, years ago, I was boxing.
Oh, wow.
So it went from boxing, and then I still do a little boxing, and that morphed into the ballroom dancing. But I've always made time, and that's always been a priority. And it's a good way to release some of your stress from work.
I was a competitive boxer in college, and people don't realize the amount of energy that you have to do, and in a very short period of time, you can get your blood going and your energy level up.
Yeah.
So how do you, human capital is also about constantly growing and developing new skills, and you've been in a lot of different industries. So how do you develop a new skill that doesn't come naturally to you?
So I would say hire the right coaches. And that's a mantra that I've lived with for my whole life, regardless of what area I'm talking about. So I learned to box by finding a wonderful boxing coach. I've learned to dance. I have the most fabulous dance partner. I've become a gourmet cook.
Wow.
And I went to cooking classes, and then I also love boating, and I hired a captain to teach me how to boat properly.
Right.
So I think that my recommendation would be find the right people and surround yourself and hire the right people to teach you.
Great. So, when we talk about emotional capital and how do we regulate emotions, we all have ups and downs. We all have massive failures in our life. How do you recover from something you've been working really hard and you just massively fail?
So I have an interesting personal history. My mother's entire family are Holocaust survivors. And at one point in my life, a company that I was working with folded. And my cousin sent me a copy of the documentary my sister made about my mother's experience called Voices from the Attic. And inside the video, she said, it could be worse. And I realized that's sort of my mantra now in life. It could be worse. I'm not, starving, God forbid, and I'm not running away from anything. And when you put your life in perspective with the history of my family, everything that I'm experiencing is something that can be recovered from. And there's always something worse. And I'm very grateful that I'm in this position. Even if I fail, I know I can pick myself up and start over.
Right. Now, I failed in my first marriage. I consider that a failure. I know that you went through a painful divorce. How does, many people go through painful experience like that. How did you deal with that and coming out of all of those emotions?
Well, it's interesting because I've said that, and I suggested earlier, don't get divorced.
Right.
Divorce is like war. And then when you come out of it, you sort of find yourself again. And we've done these archetypes now in R360. And one of my secondary archetype was an adventurer. And I didn't know that until after I got divorced. So the benefit of getting out of a bad relationship is that you find yourself again. And I found things about myself that I didn't know existed previously.
Like what?
That I love traveling, and I'm really adventurous, and the more exotic and sort of almost dangerous the place is, the more exciting it is for me. So we had previously just gone to sort of the same places multiple times a year, and now I'm just traveling all over the world. I was recently in Peru, back and forth in 5 days to Machu Picchu, which is crazy.
But does that mean also, if you end up finding a new partner, you would find a partner that would do those things with you over a time?
Yes.
So you
Yes,
would have
and it
these things
doesn't
you
have
do
to be
together?
5 days.
Of course. So how do you cultivate a positive mental attitude in the face of adversity? Because we're all going to change and we're all going to face adversity. How do you cultivate it, and what advice would you give others?
So I think it's just about being calm. Sometimes you just have to let the wave wash over you, and then you just rebound and resurrect yourself. And I think it's about not being scared about adversity, just sort of accept it, and then figure out, okay, now what am I going to do from here? I think the biggest issue is the more afraid you are when something's not working out, the less capable you are of decision making. And if you look at the situation calmly and you relax, you can make better decisions about next steps.
So, spirituality, what are your spiritual beliefs? How important have they been in your life? And I assume, when you're raising children, the lives of your family?
So I'm Jewish, and I'm very connected to my background. As I said, my family are Holocaust survivors. And I've always believed that there's a higher power and that justice will prevail. And so I believe in that higher power, and I'm very connected from a spiritual level, not necessarily actionable, but I feel like there is a force looking out for us. And I believe that if you behave appropriately, that good things happen to good people.
And how did you raise your children? Were you and your husband aligned around, how you were bringing in spirituality to your own children?
So I was definitely more, I was practicing religion, and he was much less connected, but I was the force with the children, and it was important to me, and so I took that space over, and I owned that space, and I made sure that my children were educated and they had the right background, and ultimately children grow up and they make their own decisions. But it was very important to me that they feel that connection to Judaism, and I believe they do.
Great. Some people define spirituality more broadly, which is really understanding your why. Why are you here? What are your gifts, whether God-given or otherwise, and how do you use those gifts for the benefit of humanity and the health of our planet? How do you define your life purpose, and how do you align everything that you do around your why and why you're here?
So my biggest priority in life is my children, taking care of my children, helping them grow to become people who have a true north. They understand what their purpose is in life. They understand that they need to be good, kind people, to have empathy. Every Thanksgiving, I was on the board of a charity called God's Love We Deliver. We deliver homebound people, we deliver meals to them. And so every Thanksgiving, the kids and I go out and deliver food for these homebound sick individuals. And I've had my kids working in the kitchens at God's Love We Deliver since they were young children, since they were teenagers. They've been preparing meals, they've been delivering meals. And it's important to me that they not only do something positive and charitable, but they connect with and relate to the people that they're helping. And that's why I particularly love this charity, because you're delivering meals to people that are sick. They can't create meals for themselves, and they're so appreciative and grateful, and you could see the appreciation in their eyes. And that's my purpose, which is to bring my children up so that they have empathy, so that they're good, kind people, and so that they take care of the people in the world around them.
And I assume when you have grandchildren one day that will also be a very purposeful thing that you will work to make sure that's passed on to your grandchildren and theirs as well.
Yes.
And I want to end up with one final question, which is, you through your career have been in the presence of a lot of wealthy individuals that have accumulated a lot of wealth. How do you think about trying to inspire and challenge future generations, and what message would you have for individuals that have great wealth but aren't as inclined as you are to use it to really benefit humanity and the health of our planet?
So I would say that the more you expose people to opportunity, the more you inspire them. And I think for people who have great wealth who haven't taken that step, the option to present opportunity will change that path. Sometimes people don't take the next step because they can't figure out what the next step is or how to get there. But if you start presenting examples to them, I find that it inspires people to do that next thing, the thing that they always thought in the back of their mind, oh, you know, maybe I could help this way. And they just don't think it's viable. So I think it's a question of turning the opportunity into something viable, and you can do that through example. And you can do that by teaching people, coaching people, adding support, hiring the right mentors. And there are mentors for giving and for purpose, and people can help you sort of define your direction. But I think that the best thing to do is to expose people so they know what's possible.
Well, thank you so much for inspiring me, and I know that you've inspired and worked particularly with women, mentoring entrepreneurs and professionals, so keep doing what you're doing because I'm inspired.
Thank you.
So thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.